You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
The source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the province.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high, a lot of things.
State of MedTech with your host, Omar and Khateeb.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Another President's Club episode for you, this time with Erik Grahovac. Erik is now a consultant who essentially works with medical sales reps and sales leaders. But prior to that, he had a long career in medical sales, specifically at Stryker, where he won numerous rewards. We get, like, the most important thing that we get from this episode with Erik is, more importantly, the mentality and mindset that you need to have to get President's Club, along with some more tactical things. Now, before we get into the episode, I want to remind you all, if you're a medical salesperson, you know how difficult getting access to surgeons are. You know that hospital access has pretty much gone away. And so it's difficult to sell these days, okay? Unless you have enrolled in the Medical Sales Network Effects program. That's my program and online course. It's a self-paced course that you can get into today. Just check the show notes below for a link and you'll get a discount for it. The course comes along with over 50 different videos, 50 plus videos rather, that are short form, get to the point, right? Templates, things such as email, persuasion frameworks, and more. We have a VIP group that helps you essentially connect with other reps, VPs, and also, more importantly, when people go through my program, if I get recommended or asked by CEOs if I can recommend somebody for their sales team, whether at a director level, rep level, etc., I only make recommendations if I either worked with you or, in this case, have gone through my programs, essentially been trained by me. And so it's a great way to sort of get new opportunities to take a look at. And so you can learn more about this by going to digitalmedicalsales.com and entering the code President's Club Podcast, or just click the show notes below and it'll take you right there. So with that being said, let's get on to our episode with Erik. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to another State of MedTech President's Club series. Today I'm joined by Erik Grahovac, who is the founder and owner of EG60 Consulting, who works with a variety of different people from breaking into the industry, but also reps or industry trying to move up the ladder, of course, sales leaders. Erik, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing, Omar?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to have you on the show, mainly because, you know, you've hit a variety of different, sales leadership positions and awards and everything. But more importantly, you know, you have a really unique background, which I want to, if you can just kind of touch on it for a little bit, which was, you know, you're a D1 football coach. You worked for Fortune 100 company, which is ADP. Then also you're in pharma, but then also spent, you know, a good amount of your career at Stryker, you know, so it's like a really unique mix of things. But maybe kind of get us started with like a little bit about your background, and we'll jump right into talking shop in terms of like, what do you advise people to do in terms of breaking into President's Club? What does it take to be a great rep? So maybe just first, like, tell us a little bit about like your background.
Yeah. So, I mean, I played college football. I played Division I football at Ohio University. I was an offensive lineman there. And, you know, growing up as a kid, I wanted to be like an FBI agent or like a Secret Service agent, one of those things. And my parents were like, sure, you want to do that? There's other things to think about. What about coaching football? And that hit me and stuck with me for a long time growing up as a kid. And as I was working my way as a college athlete, I built a great relationship with my position coach, who was well respected. And we kind of sat down and talked about what it would take to do that as a young coach. And he took a job at the University of Louisville. This is like 20 years ago now, which is wild to think about. But he called me on Christmas Eve and was like, hey, I took this job. We've got an opening as a video graduate assistant, and it didn't matter what the job was going to be, Omar, as long as I could get my foot in the door. It's that type of industry. And in a program like that, I said, absolutely. So I went there, ultimately was a video graduate assistant for about 2 months before the head coach passed me in the hallway and said, hey, if you really want to learn about football, you need to make sure you're hanging out more with us. So I put down the camera and began my career as a graduate assistant coach there, and then ultimately became a tight ends coach, which was great. I mean, I was 24 years old, leading a team of 4 or 5, young players in a certain position, and got my first leadership job that way, but also got a lot of exposure to, boardroom meetings around a multi-million-dollar program and what it takes to run it and win, and hire talent and develop talent. So I got an interesting perspective there as really a young kid who didn't know what I was absorbing until later on in my career. But when I made the decision to get out of coaching, really it was made because, my wife was in med school at the time. Really, she was my girlfriend at the time, and we've been dating, all through college. And you really can't do both. You can't have a surgeon wife and a husband that's coaching college football or professional football. It's just not, it just doesn't work. It's 110 hours for each role, and wasn't going to work out. So I knew I had to get out of that and made the decision to do that, which was tough to do. And my brother was in med device sales at the time. And I'm trying to remember who he was with. I want to say it was like Ethicon or somebody like that up in Columbus, doing great. Looked like he was making great money and life was good. And everybody's kind of channeling me towards sales. The guy I was coaching with had worked with ADP in a previous life of his own and lined me up with a guy that he knew in Chicago that managed some of the business there. I got an interview with ADP because all the recruiters I was talking to told me to go sell B2B and get into things that way, which was great advice because ADP's, first of all, it's a great company. I mean, you said it, they're Fortune 100, they're massive. They're not like a fly-by-night organization. They train you really well. They prepare you to run a territory. You find out if you're good at it. You find out if you like it. You find out a lot about your capabilities as a salesperson. So I did that for a year on the west side of Cincinnati as my wife was finishing up med school. And then she got her residency match back in Pittsburgh, where we're from. And as I was getting ready to propose to her, sitting in this woman's living room in Pittsburgh, looking at diamonds on a coffee table, she mentioned that her brother was with a pharmaceutical company called Novartis. So sort of leveraged that relationship, got on with Novartis, which at the time was probably, sort of like the Stryker of the pharmaceutical world. They were ultra selective on their talent. They had great products. They were really, really well respected with their customers. And it was a great chance to get back to Pittsburgh, but certainly try my skills in a different sales realm, completely different from B2B. And the goal, though, was to get into med device. And I received a phone call from a guy that I played college football with that was with Stryker at the time, covering Pittsburgh out of Columbus. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm about to leave the company. I'm covering this open territory in Pittsburgh. I'm going to go become a scout for the Green Bay Packers. And you should go interview for this job. You should stop what you're doing and go interview for it. So long story short, did that. Met an incredible leader there by the name of Jake Profit, who hired me into the company. He was just a world-class person, Jedi master leader, and gave me an opportunity to get in there. So I sold for 4 years, won some awards, hit a bunch of quotas, did all those things, and ultimately became a leader and a coach again, which was the plan from the get-go. When Jake sat me down, I was like, what do you want to accomplish here? I was like, yeah, I want to win a Rolex, do the president's stuff or whatever, but I've got to lead a team and coach at some point. That's in me to do. And I did that. So managed a couple businesses there, acquisitions, billion-dollar divisions, you name it. And then my last role there, I was a sales director for their sustainability solutions business, which is totally different than everything else that Stryker had to offer. So they were reprocessing single patient use items across all manufacturers and cleaning them up and selling them back at a discount, reducing waste in the hospital. Very cool business. And again, worked for some great leaders there along the way. And as I made the decision to leave to bring us to current day, Omar, we moved from Pittsburgh to South Carolina to the beach. And through that decision, it was like, okay, if I'm ever going to go do all these things that I know I'm great at now, I've got sort of felt like the receipts to prove that I can hire and develop and pour into people and help them be successful. I'm going to go try and do this on my own. And it was very difficult to do because Stryker's an amazing company, man. I mean, they really are. It's full of great people. It's great products, everything you would want. It was a very difficult change. But I just felt like I needed to do it. And fast forward almost 2 years later now, I built a business on LinkedIn alone. And now I work with people one-on-one, just the way you mentioned and kicked off the show there.
That's awesome. And congrats. Yeah. I mean, similar to you, I started my business thanks to LinkedIn. So, it's a great platform. I'm a huge fan. Interesting. Just a quick side note, just because I think you'll appreciate this. I'm sure the audience will. So, LinkedIn, was purchased by Microsoft, I think for $29 or $30 billion. And I always felt like this, but there was an investor who talked about this, that LinkedIn really should have been bigger than Facebook. It really should have. But the reason why it wasn't was because Facebook had really, like, their developers who started Facebook, they're really aggressive, worked around the clock. They were just grinding all the time, like very Silicon Valley mindset. Whereas LinkedIn, a lot of the developers were European, and they're very kind of like, hey, just put in 40 hours a week and it'll be fine. But if you think about it, for LinkedIn, look, there's no paid feature on Facebook. On LinkedIn, like, how many people, like, I don't know, maybe a quarter, maybe more, are paying to use LinkedIn, if not more. You have people who are verified using IDs. So, like, you have decision makers, you have like real people on there. I just feel like, man, like, it's such a great platform. But in a way, I think it was better that it got acquired by Microsoft, because now Microsoft doesn't benefit for having like more users on LinkedIn. Facebook does, though. So it's just an interesting like sign up. So I want to kind of introduce the audience to like your like some of the awards you got at Stryker. So I'm going to kind of read this off here. So 2010 to 2013, you won a President's Club or President's Breakfast. 2012, you were a Rolex Award winner. 2013, Executive Council member. And 2013, it was Gallup Sales Academy. Right now, like, when you look at, I think the obvious thing is you hit your number, you're going to win President's Club, but it's not enough to do that, right? Like, when you talk to some of the reps, like, what are some of the pieces of advice you can give them in terms of how do you set yourself up to win President's Club and essentially like achieve quota?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen over the years from the reps that have had more success than I had. I mean, I did well personally as a rep, but was I the best rep in the company? Absolutely not. I think when you get down to like common denominators of what makes some of these, best in the world, truly best in the world at what they do type reps, is it's like a good combination of all the natural abilities that you need, right? If you're selling into a hospital, certainly if you're selling capital equipment, you've got to have a way about you where you can command and control a meeting, a room, a conversation with a customer, any interaction that you may or may not have with patients and all the people that are surrounding your products in certain ways. So you got to have those natural abilities. You've got to understand how to sell. One of the things that I learned at Stryker selling, listen, man, selling hospital stretchers, like, there's not a lot of sex appeal in walking into a building, having a conversation with customers about that. But where things get advanced and where you take a $12,000 unit that you're selling and your competitor has a $3,500 unit, and all anybody's talking about is, well, it's all going to come down to price, and somehow you get 80% of the market selling a premium product. You've got to do something completely different than walking in with a really good smile and, being able to hold down a conversation. You've got to figure out ways to be in the building and be valuable to people, and there's probably a difference between being valuable and like bringing value. People think, well, you got to bring value to the call. And they may see like, okay, well, I got to make sure I bring in our latest studies and our marketing materials and, the value that we think we're going to share with somebody in an interaction. But you've got to spend time around your customers, every single person that touches the equipment, and learn what life is like when they use it, and find all the areas of opportunity that perhaps your product can make an improvement in that process. A procedure that's being done, transporting a patient from the emergency room to the OR or radiology, how you respond to a code on the med-surg floor, how you conduct CPR on a patient, all the other things that you can really pour yourself into as a rep to learn more about the customer than they even really know about themselves or are willing to admit. Gather all that information up, have a really good, productive conversation with a customer to teach them what you found so that they can recognize that, all right, we're not perfect right now. We're not even close to being where we want to be, let alone being perfect. And this rep has put all this time and effort in bringing real data to us to show us how we can get better. And then the close ends up becoming the solution that your company just so happens to offer that can fix that stuff. That's what the great reps do. They're truly earning the business, right?
Can you give me like a little bit more of an example, like a detailed example of that? Because I completely agree. I think there's a difference between like bringing value and actually providing value. So like maybe something specific from your experience in the past of how you did that, something like that. Because I think a lot of reps they want to have a consultative sell, and they want to provide, they want to provide value. So they just don't. It's not sometimes as obvious as to where to start.
Yeah. The way I like to teach this, with my clients I'm working with right now, they're like in the business. They've been selling for 5 years. They're trying to crank things up. It's like, if you got full access to the hospital, if you got like the magic hall pass to go into the place and rummage through drawers and take pictures and gather as much intelligence as you could, what would you want to know that could lead you to what your product brings, or your service even brings, to a hospital to help them? Think about all the stuff that your product can do and what information you would need to extract from the hospital if fictitiously you were given full access to everything. Not that you're rummaging through doors and taking pictures of things you can't, but if you're going to be an FBI agent and gather evidence, what do you need to know? And that's kind of the starting point. If you apply that to whatever products in your bag, there should be a good list of things that you're going to want to look for. And then as you start to build that into the conversation you're having with your customers and help them coach you up on what all the things are that are important to them, that are missing, if they could create their own widget that handles this little disease state or this, patient throughput exercise that's done in the hospital, like what would they want to improve on? So to make it more realistic, it's like, take a stretcher, for example. You can't walk into a hospital and say, all right, I've got stretchers to sell. Do you guys want to buy some stretchers? Everyone's going to tell you no. It will be the answer, because there's perceivably more important things to deal with when you're talking about capital equipment as well, right? You're competing against HVAC systems, parking garages, robots, you name it, the big ticket stuff. But if you could go in there and observe how a group of people move a patient from point A to point B, and the time that it takes to do that, and the weight of the patient, and how many transporters are needed, and are there any ramps that they need to go up? Are there any ramps that they need to go down? Is there a person that catches or hopes to catch a patient that's coming down a 10-degree ramp because 5 years ago, one of those transporters lost their grip and, that patient went flying? Like, you've got to uncover all the things that happen around the product to be able to sit back down with the people that really care about it, because there is somebody in the building that's going to care about a product that's not sexy. It's their job to make sure you got a bed for every head, and you've got safe transport happening, and all of those things, and efficiency around it. If you've got 4 people that you're going to assign to transport a patient from the emergency room to the OR because your stretcher doesn't steer the right way, well, that's inefficient. You've got $240,000 worth of salary moving someone from point A to point B. What if you only needed one person to do that if you had the right equipment? So that's all the information that you're gathering. You're taking inventory of every single piece of equipment in the building, touching it, tagging it, doing the 121-point inspection. Is there rust on it? Is there sharp metal edges on it? Are the mattresses torn? Do the brakes work? And if you can go gather up all that information and sit down and have a conversation with somebody in a hospital that's a VP level, a C-suite level, a director level, and present it the right way with pictures if you need to prove, to see what you're seeing. Better yet, have somebody in the hospital join you to do the exercise. You've completely separated yourself from the person that's just hoping to walk in and have a clinical conversation, or again, have a good smile and somehow build some relationship that's going to allow a hospital to budget to replace 300 stretchers in a swoop. You can't do that. You're going to hope to be the low cost alternative that hopefully wins when people just look at the purchase price versus the cost of owning it or the cost of making the change.
I'm wondering, also on the same note, because I think there was a time where you can just be charismatic and have a smile and like people like you, and you would have a really successful, like lucrative career in med device, and that's changed in the last, I'd say 10 or 15 years. I mean, look, I know VPs and CEOs who used to carry the bag, and they've told me personally, man, I'm really happy I'm not a rep, Omar, because it's really hard these days. So that being said, on the other side, what are some things that you see reps doing that that are mistakes? So I'm sure you see a lot of bad habits that reps have. What are some that kind of come to mind for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing again is going against the grain of what we just talked about, which is like such a unrefined and selfish approach, and probably based in fear of quota attainment and the pressures of the job and all that, to walk into a hospital and not be valuable. I talk about this with my wife all the time. It's like I try and extract from her, like, hey, tell me about some things that you see that these reps just do the wrong way. And I think one of the biggest things that reps don't understand sometimes is when you're selling into a hospital and you're walking in to talk to a surgeon, a nurse, a director of some kind, anybody in that building, whatever you're going to just say to them that's like, hey, feature benefit wise, or, have you considered using this or considered using that? It is literally going over their head. They are not listening to you at all. They are thinking about the meeting they just walked out of, the family waiting room they just walked out of to tell someone good news, bad news, or something indifferent, sharing with somebody that they have cancer. There's more for them to think about than you just walking up to them as a rep and trying to dump something on.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You know what I mean, dude? They don't care about you. No offense, they don't. Unless you have value to what you're doing, and if it can evolve into a conversation, it's like, hey, I've been observing and working with your staff for the last 6 months. These are all the things that we're uncovering that we can work on to fix. Then all of a sudden, like you're showing up there, like improve their life, not just sell them something.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think this is also where, again, not everybody is on there, but for reps to learn how to use LinkedIn to get in front of the customers, because more physicians, clinicians especially, are using LinkedIn or on there. So I think there's ways to use LinkedIn just to engage people, to get in front of them. And even if they don't have LinkedIn, there are other ways, like, some of the reps that I know is they'll go, and stay up to date on like new clinical publications, get the one that's relevant to their surgeon, email it to them with like a summary, And so I think those ways are really important. But you're absolutely right about, I think reps forget about that because I think it's so normal. Like, oh, I'm going to go into the hospital, talk to a doctor. Like, man, look, you and I both work from home. Can you imagine if like even if it was once or twice a day, somebody rings our doorbell and they're trying to sell, I don't know, some software or something for a small business, and they're trying to like, and they're doing it in the middle of like, I don't know, a meeting that you're having. Like I would go nuts. And this is what clinicians have to deal with every day. Like, I think on average, on a weekly basis, no, I think actually a daily basis, that some physician offices see anywhere from 10 to 12 salespeople a day, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The good example, I posted about this, and I think about this one a lot. You know the folks that come door to door, they get like dropped off, in an 18-passenger van. They pour out into the neighborhoods. They start knocking on doors, trying to sell pest control and those sorts of things, right? So there was one day I'm in my driveway, and like, the kids have all their toys and everything's just thrown about the driveway. It's time to go inside and have dinner as a family. So I'm like cleaning up, I've got like my hands full, picking up basketballs and, bikes and all the things to try and drag them into the garage. And I see this guy come walking up the driveway, and I'm like, oh man, like, dude, bad timing. Like, can't you see I've got all this stuff in my hand, And not that selling med device or medical technology is the same thing, but this guy was prepared to have a conversation with me about my yard and what was in it and what we may need to prevent something. And he came up in a really good way. He wasn't just leading with like, hey, I'm Jimmy from XYZ Pest Control. We're here to sell you some pest control service. It's like, hey, we're just walking around the neighborhood, just at no charge at all. We'll walk to the yard. And if there's anything that we see, I know you're busy, looks like your hands are full, seems like you need to be going to dinner. I'll walk the yard. And if we see anything that you need to be aware of, we'll let you know. I said, yeah, great, dude, do it. So I gather up everything, throw it in the garage, go upstairs. He knocks on the door. He's like, hey, there's two things I want to talk to you about. Come look at this. Shows it to me, right? Like, taking the picture. Let me see the proof. Take a look at this. See what's going on with these plants right here. Have you guys had any issues with ticks? And I was like, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that because we just carved one out of my daughter's neck last week, had to give her the medicine and the whole thing. The Lyme disease is like an issue. And, 5 minutes later, dude, I'm signing up for an $85 a month pest control thing to eliminate ticks from my yard. But if he would have walked up and just tried to say, hey, have you been, can I spray your yard to remove ticks and this and that? I would have been too caught up and busy in it. But he, at no charge, evaluated the circumstance that we had and came back with real proof on an efficient or a deficiency, quote unquote, that we had in our yard to prevent, spreading a disease. Okay. So it was like, I just think that's like a simple, good, true example of you can't just approach a doctor out of nowhere and try and sell them something. You've got to arrive with information that's going to resonate to them because you put the work in for free on your own time and came back and consulted with them about something you noticed. Your team agrees that there's something that can be fixed here. We got the solution for it, and let's talk about it.
No, I completely agree. Do you feel like, what about when you're, for reps who they're in that situation and the clinician has no problem. They're happy with the product they're using. And I feel like this is where, I don't know, I feel like we need to have some change in the industry in terms of how we compensate reps. Like I kind of feel, I'm wondering if you disagree, tell me. I kind of feel like we need to pay reps more money and maybe a little bit less on the commission side, because I feel like a lot of the value that a rep is providing is for customer support and customer success. And of course, like growing accounts is one thing, but sometimes, I don't know, like certain accounts, like no matter what you do or show them, like they're happy with their current solution, they're not going to be changing. So I don't know what to do with that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the age old, regardless of what's in your bag, that's the age old sales challenge. This is where sales gets difficult. This is where sales, like, if everybody could do it, they would be doing it. If you just leave it up to the customer to feel like everything's okay and they're not, everything's perfect, everything's just the way it is, then that's the way it'll stay. And this is, it goes back to what we're talking about here is you've got to put really good time and effort into understanding how everything works with that customer. And if it checks out, dude, that everything is literally absolutely perfect and there's not going to be any changing in that, then that's okay for now. You know what I mean? It's not like you can't walk into every single hospital, every doctor's office and just expect that you're always going to sell. No one has 100% market share. They just don't. But this thing's tough, man. And there's work that needs to go into it that not every rep is willing to put that time and effort in. So I come from the school of, I started selling on 100% commission, which was advised to me is like, dude, don't do that. You need to have a base salary, you need to have these things, but that profit share that you can create with a company is a heck of a motivator for you to put the work in to find answers to problems that people just weren't aware that they had. So I look at it, I can understand the point of view, certainly. And when you get into certain subspecialties of med device, it could be true. It could be true. I'm trying to think of the industry as a whole here, which is always a good reminder for anybody that's listening to this in terms of the opportunity within med tech. There's a lot more to it than just supporting a surgeon doing a case. There's a lot of equipment in the building. If you walk through a hospital and hit every floor and hit every department, there's people and products that are needed all over. And the opportunity is typically way bigger than people give it credit for. I know certainly me 15, 20 years ago, I was like, well, what is this business? I wear scrubs. I stand next to a doctor and they know more than me and I need to know just enough. And we just make sure their hands are in the right spot or they know where the power button is or what is it? But you realize quickly that the opportunity is 100x what you initially imagined it to be. But regardless of the product, I think there's always, always, always more information that can be found out. You just have to put the work in as a rep. To just go in and support, collect a little bit of a paycheck, getting back to the President's Club mentality and DNA, they're doing way more than that. They're doing way more than that.
For the people who are trying to like not just break in, I have like my own thoughts and I go back and forth on this is in terms of like where is it best to start a medical sales career? Is it better to start it out at the Strykers, J&Js, and Medtronics of the world, or are you better off going into a startup? I'm wondering, like, do you have a preference of that? Like, how do you think about that?
I mean, listen, if you're going to ask for my preference, certainly, Omar, I would say you want to get in with a great reputable company that has great products. I mean, if you've got that magic wand to make that happen, I would say that's certainly the way to go. There's a lot of benefit in that. There's a lot of power in those brands and those sorts of things and the resources that they have. But if you're trying to break in, again, going back to how broad the opportunity is, when we would recruit for capital sales, whether it was the stretchers, the beds, defibrillators, mechanical chest compression, patient cooling, warming equipment, the capital stuff. A lot of times, and to even tell our recruiters this, is like, I'm not so much interested in seeing if someone's got 5 years at ABC Medical. I want someone that has a lifetime. They grew up this way. They went to school this way. They've got a professional career so far that contains extraordinary accomplishment. They like searching for talent is hard because what does that even mean? How do you find that in somebody that you're interviewing? And if you can find someone that's had a lifetime so far, whether they're 26, 36, 46, and they've got a lifetime of extraordinary accomplishment, okay? And whatever it is they were doing in their life, it's beyond ordinary to the average 100 people that are in the same box as them. You're dealing with a talented human being. So we want that first. Then we want somebody that understands how to sell. They've got some good fundamental understanding of how to sell things. And then culturally, they fit. Like they're a great teammate. They're a great employee. They understand accountability. If you can line up those three things, come sell in a hospital right now, even though you were selling pest control, because you've got all the things that we really won't be able to teach you as much. We'll give you the training on the products and we'll teach you like how to win, how not to lose, all of that, what's working, what's not. But, if you're trying to break into the business, that's where your concern should be, is how can I share a story with someone that's going to evaluate me as a total stranger? We've never met before. We're two strangers meeting on Zoom or maybe even a hotel lobby if people are still doing it. You've got to be able, that's what they're looking for. That's what they're sniffing for. Now, there's going to be certain specialties of med device where the clinical acumen may be required and they really want to, sometimes that's more like relationship driven when you get into orthopedics and spine and those things where it's, what type of business can be brought over when we bring you on board. So sometimes that matters. But for most of the opportunities in med device that I've been, a part of in the 4 different business units at Stryker, we're looking for pure talent first. We're looking for someone that has the ability and understanding how to sell, and then culturally they can enhance our team. If they've got all that, who cares where you come from, what you look like, what's been going on? That's exactly what we're looking for, is those 3 components.
How do you, as a sales leader, attract those kind of people?
Yeah, well, you need to build a team that epitomizes those 3 pillars. When you build a team that's talented, that performs, they understand how to sell, and the culture's great, you get the internal folks, the marketing associates in marketing that are like, hey, I want to get out into the sales force, and your team is the team I want to join. If they're an external candidate, you've got to be able to, when you see that candidate that you're beginning to fall in love with, you switch into recruiter mode. You start to share with them, what the expectations are of what it's going to be like when you come play here at Alabama. And that typically revs their engine and gets them going because they are that person. And it's just like you're strumming the chords of the guitar and they're like, yeah, that's what I love to hear. That's what I want. And it all lines itself up. Or it scares them away and you did good in your recruiting effort, right? You prevented a bad hire. You prevented someone that doesn't fit that, where you could potentially make a mistake as a hiring manager, which is a costly thing for business and top line, but your culture.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Pivoting, going back to, I guess, people who win President's Club, I'm wondering, in your experience, are there some downsides to winning President's Club? For me, something that kind of comes to mind is that it's like winning, it's like winning a national championship in a college sport or something, which is sometimes you kind of like rest on your laurels and you get comfortable, right? And so I'm wondering, like, what are some of the mistakes you see reps who have won President's Club or get quota achievement? And again, like, there's plenty of people who won it like they've hit quota once or twice or something, but not everybody's like doing that every single year. And I'm wondering what separates the people who hit quota, surpass it every single year versus people who, did it once and that was it.
Yeah, I mean the people that are consistent in terms of performance, and at Stryker, you kind of said at the beginning there. I mean, we had President's Breakfast. So it was like at Stryker, your Social Security number is one of two things. It's your quota attainment record. Everybody walking around Stryker knows what their quota attainment record is, and then they know what their top 5 strengths are. I mean, that's like culturally, that's the way it works there. For the people that consistently hit and perform, and make that President's Breakfast and get that bonus check and give that speech that's mandatory. It's a very special ceremony and all of that. I'll start with the commonalities of the people that end up in that room at the sales meeting, right? To wear a suit, to have champagne, to have Eggs Benedict on the table, to have to give your speech in front of your peers, and there's tears in there, there's laughter in there. It's a very, very special tradition. Those reps that are very consistent with that, they've got a lot of things going for them. They're just driven to be winners, and they were filtered appropriately when they entered the company. They're ultra competitive. They like to be ranked amongst their peers and all of that. Culturally, they're excellent. When you get up there and you give a speech, which is, again, what the custom was there at Stryker anyway, to celebrate your achievement, the great ones get up there and they thank the 15 people that helped them get there. They start talking about how great their customer service rep is. They start talking about how great their delivery driver is. They start talking about how great their team is. They start talking about how great their manager is. They just want to thank all these people. The people that don't perform consistently over time, and you can see it. I used to make note of this sitting up as a director next to the president at the breakfast. I would make a little bit of a note, as would many leaders in the company. It's like, who's getting thanks in there? Who's giving thanks in there? Who has gratitude for the support that helped them arrive in the room? And you make note of that. And you might even send the customer service rep a note after the meeting and say, hey, you got 25 thank yous at the President's Breakfast. I know you weren't at the meeting, but I just want to say thank you and give you some love. The people that consistently perform do that at that speech. The people that don't consistently perform at that speech, they kind of just talk about their year. And I had to overcome this, and I had to do that. And there's just no awareness around the gratitude of why they're in the room. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Like they're so...
No, it makes sense. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, on what they've done. Now, down the hall at Stryker, you've got the President's Breakfast room, right? Where everybody that's a quota achiever is giving a speech, collecting a bonus, and it's wonderful. Down the hall, you have the non-quota achievers breakfast. It's bagels with cream cheese. It's like the little boxes of cornflakes. It's role playing. It's business casual. I've never been in that room, but I heard it's rough. Okay, so now if you're down in that room, you're thinking you've got the one of two types of people in that room. You've got the people that are like, man, my manager's a goofball, doesn't know what they're doing. My territory's really tough. My customer service rep dropped the ball. My delivery driver showed up late and I lost the trial. They're just in there doing that. Or you've got the winners that are in that room that are thinking to themselves, man, there's 15 things I could have done differently. And that accountability fence that people fall on is the ultimate long-term differentiator between the people that consistently perform in the aggregate of a 10-year career, 15-year career, versus the people that are a flash in the pan that don't understand how to consistently win. It's like, if it's like, well, what's the one word to sum it all up? People that understand accountability and people that don't.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that, again, I've stayed in sales my entire career. Like even now as a small business owner, I still sell, I take calls, etc. And I think that the people who have the most accountability, I think they take a lot more extreme ownership as to why they lost a deal versus putting it on the market, the customer. And a lot of times it's just it is those things, right? Sure. But I think the people who do the best are the ones who like really take full accountability on why they lost a deal and what they have control over, because then I feel like the moment that you start kind of coming up with excuses, even though they might be very well rooted and founded, then like you kind of look for more of those as like deals fall through. And it's like, oh, well, hospital was off cycle on their budget, or the surgeon didn't like it, or, etc. And I feel like that just becomes a theme. Like, I don't know about you, but at least in our industry, there's a lot of reps make excuses. I don't know how else to say it, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's part of it. I think it's part of it, especially when when they don't perform. We used to say like, hey, it's great that you've hit 7 quotas in a row. And we had a leader there who's just awesome, and this was like his perspective on it. I totally bought into it. Is like, I don't care that you've hit 7 quotas in a row. I'm actually way more interested to see what happens when you miss and what happens the following year. Like, that's really what I care about. And I was one of them. I mean, 10 quotas in a row. It's like you walk around and you're like, and how you evaluate that and how you self-scout yourself and what you end up doing going into the next year in terms of performance. Then I'll be impressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, there's a big changing, like a shift happening within, not just like devices, but healthcare overall. And I think that there's becoming like a bigger divide between like reps who are really good and cut out for this and those who are not. Because again, I think the sale, whether you're selling capital equipment or just a simple disposable, it is way more sophisticated and complicated. And I think that those things are sort of exposing people like where they're most weak, including companies. One thing I've noticed, and I'm wondering your take on this, is that like I feel like every year, all these companies, they raise quota on their reps, but they don't do a good job of reinvesting into their reps to say like, hey, like we raised quota, but we're going to put some, like we're going to invest in like training you on, some new sales tactics, email persuasion, social media, like you name it. I just feel like I don't see, enough of that. What's your experience been?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly, and when you're in the 100% commission world, a quota increase is a raise. So that's the bright side of a quota going up, and it's sort of it's the expectation of most companies that you have to grow. If you're publicly traded, I mean, you have to grow. I mean, that's what it is. When companies do a great job with that, they know how to roll that out in a way where it's numbers are going up or this change is going to happen, but at the same time, here's what's in it for you. We're adding a product to the bag, or perhaps there's going to be some training we're going to focus on this year, or you're going to get something not in return, because again, if your quota goes up and your commissions are dialed in the right way, you should make more money, and that's a good thing too. But yeah, I mean, it's, to do it perfectly, you want to have some sort of incentive there or some sort of silver lining that's going to help them feel really comfortable about the achievement that they're going to be asked to deliver for the year. But that's also where like those individual regional managers need to do a great job of like keeping those teams motivated and pouring into them and guiding them on their development journey. It doesn't necessarily need to be some corporate top-down initiative. I think the really good leaders on the local level, the regional level, know how to handle that and what to do with that to motivate their people and support them and pour into them the right way. It doesn't mean do their job for them at all, but give them the growth and development, the challenge that they need to keep growing and improving. And yeah, sure, eventually, the cream rises to the top. And that's just, I mean, it's sales, man. Sales is a sport. I wish everybody could just show up and run routes and catch balls and score touchdowns and make tackles. But the reality is that's just not, it's a sport. You're going to have people that just simply can't run fast enough or hit hard enough or something like that. But the expectations should get bigger every year. I think that's part of the sport itself and part of what makes it so attractive to the people that are built for it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Erik, I appreciate you coming on. As we kind of wrap up, I wanted to kind of do some, fast questions, right? Or rapid fire questions. Sorry, rapid fire. See, like, this is the effects of like what happens when you let your kids sleep in the bed with you and you get kicked in the face all night. So for rapid fire, the first question I always like to ask is, in our space, continuing education is like a big thing. What are some books or resources that you usually point reps to start out with to sort of improve their game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a subscriber to like Little Red Book of Selling. Great book, sold 100 million copies sold, I'm sure. the challenger sale stuff. I'm not like as into like picking a philosophy on how to sell. It's more of like the skill set building. And, this book I've been recommending this book for a long time now, but Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is probably one of the best.
Great book.
I mean, it's just so good, and it works. It works in anything that you do. I've used it to negotiate a landscaping project like it works. And I think thinking about yourself as a sales rep, again, agreeing that this is a sport. If you're going to think about yourself as an athlete, it's like if I'm a football player, it's like I want to hire a speed coach. I want to hire a strength coach. I want to read a book about how to get stronger. I want to read a book about how to set or how to run faster. So with selling, I think negotiation and really understanding the skill and the art of negotiation, I can tell you for me, dude, that's when everything changed in my sales performance. When I truly educated myself on how to properly negotiate, everything changed because it gives you all the confidence in the world. It also helps you understand that some of those folks in the hospital are also trained to negotiate and how to recognize when those tactics are taking place and not freak out and stay calm and begin the joust, of negotiation. So I think anything that you can get your hands on to become a better negotiator are books you want to find if you're a salesperson. And the second would be anything that can help you. There's no book on this necessarily, but anything that you can do to help yourself become a better public speaker, to speak in front of a group of people and become powerful at that, is another one of those skill sets that over the long haul creates really good career trajectory and staying power in the business.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Actually, I think famously Warren Buffett was asked what was the greatest investment he ever made, and people thought it'd be like Coke or Apple. His answer was that it was a Dale Carnegie public speaking course, because I think learning how to do public speaking is really important. I think for the listeners, some areas that I would recommend book wise, it's not a public speaking book, but in part of it is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. But the other one I would say, especially, I completely agree, because learning how to do public speaking as a salesperson is so valuable. But I think Toastmasters is a great organization. There's always local chapters where you sign up, you go, you meet other business people, but then you're also taught how to properly speak publicly.
100%. Public speaking is free throws in basketball. It's literally a repetition thing. It's you've got to get reps. That's really that's probably why there's not a lot of books on it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard to get repetition doing that. But yeah, as many opportunities you can insert yourself to get uncomfortable and speak in front of people and picture them naked or whatever you got to do, then do it.
Oh, you did? Okay, you did remind me of an actual public speaking book. I forgot who it's by. It might be Carmine Gallo, but it's Talk Like Ted, the TED Talks. So it's Talk Like Ted. That's a good public speaking book. But yeah, you're right. There's not a lot. Weird enough, not a lot of public speaking books out there. And then outside of that, any other things that you recommend, the reps who are listening to check out? I think, you put out a lot of great content on LinkedIn. Any other resources for up-to-date content in medical sales, medtech that you like following?
Yeah, dude, a lot of my time is spent on LinkedIn right now. And I think going back to what you were saying before of how what a powerful platform it is to get information that's relative to your specialty, whatever it may be. I would say get on LinkedIn more. Before I started doing what I'm doing now, I think I had the account for about 20 years. I had 2,000 followers. I posted 3 times. I was a lurker, as Justin Welsh would say. I was just lurking. And, it's like it's there for you. There's plenty of people that are out there willing to share their information. You're one of them. You've been doing it for what feels like as long as anybody. And to do it that long, you've got to be putting out good information. So I would say, they found this podcast, which is great because they've been following you, but keep tuning into you and everything you have to share about the business. I'll say that the thing I love about you, Omar, and what you're doing as it relates to med device is it's all inclusive. You've just got a very good way of teaching people about this business, from the startups that are out there and how they come to market and what their concerns are, what reps need to know and understand. I mean, it's just such a, I'm giving you a lot of credit here that's due. It's just,
no, it's okay. You can keep going.
I mean, like, a pioneer, like the pioneer of
Thanks, man.
the people that are trying to help others in this business, because we know it's great. We know it can change lives in about 20 different ways. And I think you're crushing it, man. So
thanks, man. I appreciate it.
If you're not following Omar, go ahead and do
No,
it.
I appreciate that. No, I mean, look, I love our industry, and it's interesting. I mean, just to kind of like a quick sidebar, like, I never realized how much I love devices, because when we're in it, we all kind of complain a little bit about it, because like there's things that we see in other industries where like like I should get out of devices and stuff. But man, I'll tell you, like I went to a massive health tech conference recently called Vive, which was a great conference. I loved it. There's a lot of software, and it was very cool. But walking around, I just realized, I'm like, man, I really like device, because there's something about it. There's something really unique about selling a physical product to like a surgeon, because it's kind of like surgeons. I don't know. I see it like athletes, and when I talk, like, I can't get enough of it. Like when I talk to a surgeon, they're explaining, let's say, a certain approach to a procedure, how they get access, what techniques they like and everything. They're just, I don't know, man. There's something about it. Like, I absolutely love it. And so I just love this industry, from like the investor side, the startup side, to the strategics. I just love it, man. So I appreciate the kind words and everything. And again, I'm grateful for people like you. Talking about Justin Welch. Justin Welch is a friend, and he came out of medical device.
Yeah, he was at Stryker.
He was at Stryker. That's right. Yeah. That's right. And so I don't know. I'm trying to make MedTech great again, so that future Justin Welches don't leave the industry, man. I mean, Justin's doing great. I'm really happy for him. But like, yeah, I mean, I kind of wish somebody like that like stuck around in the industry, So I think the more Eriks and Omars that come out, like the more likely we'll be able to like not just retain people, but also recruit people. Like people coming out of college, there's a lot of really talented people. I mean, Henry, I always mention it, like Henry Peck, my really good friend, he's VP of growth and strategy over at LSI. That guy is so talented and smart. Like he probably should have ended up in like big tech or AI or something, but he just like lives and breathes med tech. Like he's in this industry forever,
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that we, through the show, we get people exposed to more opportunities, and get a little bit more excitement in the industry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, man, the thing that makes this such a great industry are the moments that I guess, sort of will inevitably happen in our lives when this stuff becomes really important personally.
Yeah, we're all going to be a patient at some point.
Yeah, I mean, when your dad gets wheeled in to have a stent put in and it's on your stretcher, or I was cardioverted on Christmas Eve one time in AFib, and to have a defibrillator that we sell, used on me to restart my heart and save me. It's like this stuff's important. It's going to affect you in some form or fashion, and that's ultimately the big attraction. What I love about it is like this is very, very important, complex stuff to help very important, complex people solve very important, complex problems. That's a matter of life and death, perhaps. And that's
absolutely. Absolutely. Erik, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, go to LinkedIn. Get on LinkedIn, man. Get on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. I don't have a website and things like that right now. I'm working on putting all that stuff together, but I post every weekday morning at 8:15. You click the bell on the profile, you get the alerts. You can follow along. Great free advice. And if you feel like you need to crank it up a notch and shoot some steroids into your career and what you want to do, book a call and let's talk about it. You can do that all on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Erik, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to thank our listeners. If you are listening and you have a recommendation for a guest on the show, maybe a President's Club series, check the show notes below. We now have a form that you can submit, goes to my team, and we do our best to kind of work through as many people as possible. We try and get as many people as we can on the show. So that being said, I'm Omar Khateeb, your host for the State of MedTech. Be sure to subscribe, give us 5 stars, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for enjoying another epic episode of the State of MedTech. If you're feeling inspired and love this episode, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you never miss an episode. And be sure to give us 5 stars and write a short review because that helps more people discover this amazing community of ours. If you're a company who has a executive that you'd like to be on the show, or perhaps you want to sponsor one of the episodes, shoot us an email at hello@khateebandco.com. Take care, and we'll see you next time.